on the bottom over here, Mem Gilman Bees, and we're trying to figure out what is. Yeah. Down there. Again, I'm just going to summarize outside. I'm trying to figure out what did they do with Arava. Was it Bezikifa or was it Binatila? That's the Shaila. That's the Shaila that we're discussing. And then we sort of quoted a lot of names and faces. What's going on? And then we ended off with Amrli Ravler, Rav Yitzchak Brei, the Rabbi Rachana, Bar Uriah. Come tell us something Geshmak to Amar Avucha. Okay, we're about 18 lines on the bottom. The first one line is Kol Hayoyim, Rav Tov, Rav David. Kol Hayoyim, Makifin es Mizbeach, Pamachas. Va'oisa Hayoyim, in that day, Makifin es Mizbeach, Sheva Pa'amim. They surrounded the Mizbeach 7 times. And Hachi Amar Avucha Meshmeder of Elazar, and on that memra, your father said in the name of Elazar, Belulav. What does it mean? They surrounded the Mizbeach 7 times. It means with the lulav. So Eisvei, so Gemara is another kasha. We're trying to figure out what do they do? They did with. Do they take the aravos or not? Lulav teiches hashavs b'tzchilasai, v'arava b'seifai. Says the Brisa. Now again, let's hold on. We're about to go to long Brisa, and the detail that we're bringing the Raya from is mamish going to be one line at the end. So let's not get caught up. So Eisvei. Lulav, again, 15 lines to the bottom. The first line is Lulav. Says the Brisa. Lulav deiches hashavs b'tzchilasai. Lulav pushes of Shabbos in the beginning. Ve'arava b'seifai. Pamachas, one time. Chal shvi'i shel arava liyos b'Shabbos. Hashanah Rabbah fell on Shabbos. So what do? Ve'heviu, and they brought marbiyos shel arava, branches of the arava, me'erev Shabbos. Okay. Ve'nicham ba'azara, and they put in the azar. Okay. What happened next? Now, v'ikiru ba'hen baisusin. The evil baisusin realized that the aravas are sitting there. So what do the baisusin do? V'natlam, they took them. V'kavshom, which literally means like to conquer, but it means that they hid them. Tachas avanim. So the baisusim took the aravais and they put it under stones. Lamachar, the next day, hekiru bahen amaratz. So now, are you allowed to take them out? No. Why not? Because the stones are muksa. The amaratzim didn't know that. So they came, vishamtum, and they pulled them out. Mitachas avanim. Hopefully they didn't rip off all the leaves in the process. But they pulled out the aravais from under the stones. Ve'vium hakoyanim, and the kohanim brought them. And what do? V'zakfum, and they stood them up. B'sidei hamizbeach, on the side of the mizbeach. Again, we're just translating, and we're going to explain afterwards. Why? Lefi she'ein baisusim maidim, because the baisusim are not maideh, shechibot arava toicha es hashavs. End of quote. Now let's say the raya, and then we're going to go back and explain. Alma, what do we see? Binatili, we see that what happened.
They don't hold up the rocks and what's either.
They held it was muksa. Again, the Amaratzim messed up. Oh. The Baisusim knew that. That's part of the funny thing over here. So album binatilihi. So we see that it was with Natila. To Yufta. That's the kasha. Now, where do we see it? So again, there's one very important Rashi. Without this Rashi, we're very, very confused. Look at Rashi, the first wide line. Ve'viom hakoyanim v'zakfam. Because again, the literal translation means the Kohanim brought it, and Zakfam, they stood it up around the Mizbeach. Look at Rashi. Aval, however, Yisrael loy haya nichnas. Yisrael would not enter bein ha'ulam, between the ulam and the Mizbeach. Okay, that part is not so relevant. But here's the important part of Rashi. Umidi katani. And because it says, katani means it learned. Chibot arava. Because it said, chibot arava. Go into the Gemara 4 lines from the bottom. What did the Gemara say? The Baisusim are not moide that what? The chibut arava. So what does that word mean? Chibut arava. So Rashi explains. What does it mean? Michlal. We could infer dibiyad noitlin isa, that with their hands they would take it. Umina anoim, and they would shake it. Umakifim ba hakoyhanim es mizbeach, and the kohanim would surround the mizbeach biragleihem, with their legs. V'achar kach zoikfim oisa, and then they would stand it up. So Rashi just put a lot into the Gemara. The words of the Gemara were, the kohanim bring it and stand it. So we read the Gemara, we think, oh, so it means they didn't actually take it with their hands. But the Gemara is proving from here that what? They did take it. Alma binatila, that they held it. So Rashi speaks out what happened was the Kehanim took it, walked around the Mizbeach, and then stood it up around the Mizbeach. Ragleim means with their legs, meaning they would walk, they would walk around and then stand up. Rashi's throwing in that word to point out that when the Gemara says Zakfum, don't make a mistake that they took these Aravos and just stood it up around the Mizbech like we thought. No, says Rashi, they first walked around and then stood it up. Okay, how did Rashi know this? Very important, because the Gemara said Alma binitilihi. We're bringing a raya from this brisa that it was nitila. They took it with their hands. So the unassuming mind reads this Gemara and says, "What in the world? What's the raya?" So you take it and you stand it up. But it sounds like you don't actually walk around with it. So we have two studim. We have two sides of the coin that we've been dealing with the last 20 lines. What do you do with the arava? Do you walk around the mizbeach with it, or do you just stand it up around the mizbeach? So when I read this Gemara the first time, what do I think? It means you stand it up. Because what did the Gemara say? Look 2 lines higher. Ve'eviam hakoyhanim v'zakfum, and they stood it up b'tzidi hamizbeach. So you would think this should be a raya the other way. But the Gemara says, Alma, you see? Binatila. So what's the raya binatila? So Rashi's filling in the blanks. And Rashi's saying, from the fact that the Gemara said the Baisusim are not moideh chibut arava. Chibut means taking. Chibut means banging. Chibut means you're doing something. So Rashi spells out that what the Kehanim did? The Kehanim didn't just stand it up. First, they walked around the Mizbeach, biragleim, with their legs. What's Rashi telling me with their legs? Rashi's just pointing out it means they actually took it and they walked around the Mizbeach. And then they stood it up around the Mizbeach. Are we clear? It's a little bit of a hard raya, but once you get it clear, it's kishmak. Let's speak it out one more time.
He learned it out from that they walked it around from.
How does he learn that out? Good. Because since the Gemara says we're working backwards, this is a raya that they took the aravas with their hands. End of statement. Jeopardy, that's the answer. What's the question? That's the answer. So how do we get there? Because the Gemara didn't speak that out. The Gemara just said they stood it up around the Mizbeach. Says Rashi, you have to read into the Gemara. They didn't just stand it up around the Mizbeach. First, they walked around with it, and then they stood it up. Where did Rashi know that from? Not just from the fact that you have to get there, because the Gemara said, Chibut arava is doicha. Chibut arava, is what the Baisusim are not moida. What's chibut mean? Chibut means you're actually doing something. So if you want, we can really say it. There's the end result that we're getting to. There's the fact that it says the Baisusim are not moida about the chibut arava. So now do the math. What's the chibut arava? Meaning, I want to say it one jot more clear. If really all it meant was to stand it around the Mizbeach, what were they doing over here? They brought an Erev Shabbos, and then they put it down. Then the Baisusim came and hit it. I don't understand. Just stand it around the Mizbeach and Erev Shabbos and call it a day. What are we doing over here? So the whole story shows us that they put it there. Why? Because they were going to come and they were going to come and they were going to take it on Shabbos. The Baisusim argued, and the Baisusim said, "No, don't do that. So we're going to go. We're going to hide it from you." Now, why did the Baisusim do that, by the way? Because the Baisusim go with Torah Shebechstav, and the Baisusim don't. They're Tzidukim. They don't believe in Torah Shebal Peh. So they go with the literal translation. And literally, you can't be Deicha Shabbos. So they went, and they were Ki'ilu preserving their Shabbos by hiding these things. But the very fact, the whole story, it's so much clearer. So the whole story proves that it has to be this way. Because if it just was,
Why couldn't they just why did they would want to stand it up on Shabbos? They wouldn't want to.
why? Why not stand it up the night before?
Haven't done anything, and you did it before the day.
Interesting. Okay, maybe you could be right. I'm asking Akasha. It could be that is the answer. Very good. Maybe. Where Rashi doesn't say like I said. I said that the whole story was this, but you're right.
So they're
Rashi,
not walking around, which is part of the.
no. But the Gemara said chibut arav. The Gemara articulated why did the Baisusim hide it? Because they held that the chibut arav is not Teicha Shabbos. Chibut arava. So that shows us that the chibut is that they're doing something with the aravas, that they're actually taking the aravas, right? Read Rashi again. Rashi builds so beautifully. Look at Rashi. Umidikatani. Again, it's really one line of a Rashi. See what Rashi does. Umidikatani chibut arava. From the fact that it says chibut arava, michlal, you can infer dibiyad, that with their hands, noitzalinaisa, they would take it. Umenaneim, they would shake it. Umakifin ba'asakanim esem baragleim, they would surround with their legs. So Rashi is saying that very good. You have to be right. That if this is the mitzvah, it has to be done on Yom Tov. Very good. Very good. Good. So again, the Gemara is being a raya b'netila. Where do we see it had to? Netila means taking it, not just standing it. Where do we see it had to mean that? From the fact that the Gemara said the Baisusim are not moide b'chibut arava. So now says the Gemara, ve'ela litchu. So we're back to square one. If what are you doing? Again, this really requires that you have to chaz the whole amid again just to get the flow of everything. But what's going on over here? We're trying to figure out what are we doing with the Arava. We're trying to figure out why Arava is not Deicha Shabbos. So you know what the Gemara answered? The Gemara answered that we're talking about Zikifa. But now we just proved that what are we talking about? Netila. So says the Gemara, Ve'ela Nitzchu, it should be Deicha Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Kivon since the Anan, we loidachinon, we don't push it off. Inhu, they, nami loidachu, also don't push it off. Who's we and they?
Us outside.
Us. We're learning Talmud Bavli. If you forgot that, you can look at Rashi. Rashi is anan begoila. Goila comes to the word of golos. Us in Bavel. Since we in Bavel don't push off, why don't we push off in Bavel? Rashi again fills in the blanks, like the last few words of Rashi, because we don't know what Day Shabbos really is. So in Eretz Yisrael, they don't push off. So now, what did we just learn? And this is again, you have to keep a chazi this Gemara because the Gemara is changing. What are we seeing now? If I were to ask why in Eretz Yisrael isn't Arava being Deicha Shabbos? So originally we said, because we're not, the whole raya is off, because we're talking about Zekifa standing around the Mizbeach. Says the Gemara, no. We're talking about taking it. So why is it not Teicha Shabbos? Because in Golos it's not Teicha Shabbos. This comes out fascinating. Really, in Yerushalayim today, Hoshana Rabbah, should you take it on Shabbos? Yes! You know why not? Because us in Golos are not. So they in Yerushalayim, they don't do it. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Vayam Tov Rishon, the first day of Sukkot, Diladi done that us in Golos, Loidachi, it doesn't push off. What are we talking about now? Lulav. Ulididu, but they in Eretz Yisrael are dachi. And this is the same detail we had from Avraham. Remember, we kept on learning that the Gemara is teaching us that we're doiche Shabbos, lulav bizman azez, doiche Shabbos. So I asked the Gemara, how could that be? If we're not doiche in Golos, how are they doiche in Eretz Yisrael? Responds the Gemara, Amri, they said, L'didu nami lo dachi. You're right. They also should not be doiche Shabbos. But now we're back and we have a kasha. And this is where everything's going to blow up and we're finally going to get our teretz. Vela kasha hani tarti. So if you're telling me, so now we have to go all the way back. The Gemara back on Mem Gimel Amud Aleph said, is lulav doiche Shabbos on day one? Yes. We're now saying is lulav doiche Shabbos on day one? No. Says the Gemara, we have a stira. Titana Chada, we have one Mishnah that says, Kolam Alichas Olavim Larabayis, our Mishnah. Vitani Idach, and we have another Mishnah that said, Lebesa Knesses, right? We should sound familiar. We just had this a moment ago. And how do we answer up? Are they bringing it to you to Besa Knesses? Are they bringing it to Harabayis? Umidar Tzinon, and we answered, Kan Bizman Shebesa Mikdash Kayom. What's going on? Because we just said it's not true. We just said Teretz is not true. Because we just said even Bizman Beis Hamikdash Kayim, it's not Doicha Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Lohi. Aidi ve'aidi Bizman Beis Hamikdash Kayim. Everything is when there's a Beis Hamikdash. V'loi kasha kan be'mikdash. Kan big fulin. So this point, the Gemara does a full 180 from where we started. And now it comes out that it's only everything is talked about Bisman Beis HaMikdash. And when there's no Beis HaMikdash, then very good. Look at Rashi.
How do we answer about lulav?
What's one second before what I'm saying? Look at Rashi. Maybe this is what you're talking about. Look at Rashi. At the end of the wide lines, what does Rashi say? Aval ata. Nowadays. Nowadays. Bishachara Beis HaMikdash. Ein lulav teiche Shabbos. Afilu lebnei Eretz Yisrael. That line, this line of our Gemara, is the Gemara taking this whole last block and chucking the whole thing. Because now, when you do Chazarah, back on Mem Gimel and Aleph, and now you see the whole sugya, and the Gemara kept on saying, it's Teicha the first day, it's Teicha the first day, it's Teicha the first day. Now we see over here, no, it's not. When is it Teicha the first day? When we have a Beis HaMikdash in the Beis HaMikdash. And the other Mishnah that said that you bring it to Beis HaKnesses is when we have a Beis HaMikdash outside of the Beis HaMikdash in Gvulin. Not everyone went to Beis HaMikdash. So whoever didn't go, that's what the other Mishnah is talking about. You take it to Shul. Now this is
Beis Hamikdash outside of a Beis Hamikdash.
You Beis HaKnesset, you have a Shul, yes.
We
Comes
couldn't-
out.
We couldn't make it.
Yeah, you should have went. You're supposed to go to Eretz Yisrael. You didn't. For whatever reason, you weren't able to go. So now that guy loses out. It's interesting to think about. You're supposed to go to Shalosh Regalim, right? So if you go, you get an extra benefit. You get to take your lulav on day one, right? So imagine when on a year that the first day is Shabbos. If you go to the Beis HaMikdash, you have to take your lulav on Shabbos. If you don't go to the Beis HaMikdash, then what? Then that's where we said that you bring it to Lebeis HaKnesses.
So in Eretz Yisrael, basically now they're making Shachianu on first day Chalamayit. It's not the Shabbos, so their first Shachianu is
No.
right.
Well, that's I mean that is what we do nowadays, right?
Second day Yontif.
Right. In Achanami.
That's first.
In Achanami. But this line is very important because right over here, this is the end of the sugya. Really, we have a few extra lines, but over here,
If we had a Beis Hamikdash,
so that's interesting. What do they do? Bisman Beis HaMikdash with the shofar? Interesting question. Meaning we're learning here that the whole gezerah of Rabbah didn't apply Bisman Beis HaMikdash. It's a good question. It's a good question.
There's only one person back then, and this makes people in shofar.
The Taisus apparently talks about this.
You don't have shofar from Rosh Hashanah. It's a bad omen for the rest of the year.
For other times also.
In the Beis Midrash, yeah, all the time. But I don't know if they did it. One second.
Shofar always in the Beis Midrash.
Taisus deals with what you just asked. I don't know what he says though. So he gets involved that Schaefer might be different. Okay, let's stop here. Let's do a real. We really have to do. I don't know if we ever did. We have to do this whole plot in one sitting, because that's the only way we're going to get. Because this line here is going backwards from over here, so we really have to get the whole flow of this Gemara. So let's get there. Siyat Ishmael. Let's stop here. We have 3 minutes.